that is not in the green is the national debt. U.S. deficit surged to a record $864 billion last month as the government continued to dole out money amid the coronavirus pandemic. But the national debt right now stands at more than $26 trillion, which obviously raises some big questions on the future of stimulus. So for more on that, we're joined now by Douglas Holtz-Eakin, American Action Forum president, with us now. Doug, thank you so much for joining us. I want to start on that really mind-blowing figure, $26 trillion. I mean, what is this going to do to future stimulus plans that Americans overwhelmingly are starting to say that they feel that they want and that they need?
I hope nothing to future stimulus plans. I think it's pretty clear that the top priority has to be taking care of Americans, getting back to full employment, completing the economic recovery, and concern over the federal budget should not interfere with doing that. Do everything that's necessary in this moment. And I think to date, Congress and the Federal Reserve should be applauded for their efforts. They have by and large been of an appropriate scale. The numbers are big because this is an enormous economic downdraft, and they have been targeted effectively on the problems that we face. So that's good news going forward. I hope it remains the case that we do that. But I will say, as a former director of the Congressional Budget Office, I worry about the level of the national debt, because a very minimal condition for a country is to be able to stabilize your debt relative to your gross domestic product, your national income. And in the 21st century, the U.S. has never done that. And so that challenge remains. And at some point in 2023, 4, 5, a Congress and an administration are going to have to do that. And it will be difficult work with higher taxes and reduced spending. That will be politically hard to get done. So everything we're doing now is necessary, but it's not free. There will be a future moment when we realize that.
So to that point about what's coming in the future, I mean, obviously we can't raise taxes right now, but the outlook for 2021, somewhat more positive. I mean, could we get higher taxes, do you think, or do you think that we might need taxes raised as early as next year?
I don't think we'll need taxes raised as early as next year. I think most people believe that there will be a relatively quick recovery to something like 5% below the levels of economic activity we had in January, but that the remainder of the recovery will be fairly prolonged and drawn out. And a big increase in taxes would interfere with that recovery. I think that we're more likely to need tax increases somewhere in the out years, 22, 3, 4, certainly not next year. That doesn't rule out, an outcome of the election where candidate Biden becomes the president and he has pledged to raise taxes next year, regardless of our economic situation. I disagree with that call, but it could happen.
So in your note, you called this, quote, the proverbial last train leaving the station. But is it? I mean, we don't have a vaccine yet. We're seeing the virus surge. We might have another wave. People are saying this is going to be continuing well into 2021. I mean, it feels as if coronavirus right now is a runaway train, if I'm going to borrow your train metaphor there. I mean, so is this really the last train leaving the station, or do you think we're going to be getting more assistance 6 months from now or even next year?
I certainly think it's the last train leaving the station before the election. And in that sense, there's a lot of interest in getting whatever provision you may want onto the last piece of legislation before Congress and the president really turn full-time to campaigning. As far as the outlook, I fully expect that we will continue to see episodes like the one we're experiencing now, where there are regional outbreaks, where there are necessities to dial back the level of commerce, and we see headwinds to the recovery. And as a result, we have a slower, more prolonged recovery. It's not a V shape in the end. And to do that, I think we need to learn to really have the economy operate in the face of the virus and not rely on stimulus to overcome it. The strategy in the CARES Act was, all right, we'll all hide from the virus and we'll just throw money at the problem. That's not a viable solution going forward. If we want low-income individuals to have a sustainable standard of living, it can't be checks from the federal government. It has to be a job. And so we have to make workplaces safer, make the transactions with the customers more secure, have people have the confidence to go out and engage in their economic lives. And all policies should be focused on that.
All right, Doug, thank you so much for joining us today. Douglas Holtz-Eakin, American Action Forum president. And next,